Hey everybody, this is Fat Fingered Just in Case of America Matters, rejoining our friend Scott, the man, the myth, the legend Dudley for American Consciousness. Hello, Scott. Welcome back.
The feedback was Scott.
Yes.
Well, it's good to be here. Listeners, it's great that you're here. It really is. I don't know about Justin, but for me, it's like, I'm always kind of spinning my wheels on all sorts of topics all the time. Um, I was actually studying hollow Earth theory the other day,
Wow.
and there were some people who did some amazing science on this stuff. It's like it's very mathematical. And almost enough where you go like, yeah, well, maybe that's true, but probably not.
Well, math lovers will always find patterns in everything.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, you have to take something being mathematical with a grain of salt. Do you get a sum?
I don't care anything about my birthdays, anything, but my birthday is going to be in a couple of days, and you know what I'm excited about? That my number of my age is more factorable than the previous one.
But
So it's
it's not a prime number.
well, last time, so I've been 62, and 62 is 31 times two. There aren't a lot of other ways around it. So I'm really excited to be 7 times 2 times 3.
Okay. All
And
right.
then
Well,
64 is like 2 to the 6th power. So that'll be awesome.
all right. Well, 64 is a prime number. I thought you were older than that, Scott, so.
No, 64 is the most dividable number ever. It's 16, 4, 32, 8. It just goes with almost every even number ever made. So,
Okay. Cool. All right,
all
but
right.
hey, you want
But
well,
this is cooler.
all right. Now, Scott, this is our second effort at this, but Scott, Hermetics or not to Hermetics, that's the question of the day.
Right. Hermetics, okay, so it's another place where you can just kind of go fishing, where you can kind of explore curiosity. And some people go deep diving, right? I mean, like the New Agers or the really serious kind of mystic people. Some of those people get into like alchemy and other stuff. This is a shallow dive into it, and it seemed like a good place to go. And I thought if we bounced it, you know, the guy that we're going to talk about is Zen Prem, and he came up with this list of 12 like ways to up your vibe. And anybody who says vibe obviously is already way off the cliff, right?
Well, he certainly defining himself as cool, if that's a
Well,
thing.
and I was stepping away from it, and it's funny because he doesn't have that many followers. He's not huge, but I was already stepping away from him, um, and then I read his story, and basically he's survived stage 4 cancer twice in two different places, and both times he was given like marching orders, like prepare your stuff, you're gonna die, you know, get up, get over it, et cetera, et cetera. And he managed to survive, and so ultimately I give a person like that a little bit more credence because they're not just goofing around.
Well, maybe Scott,
Made.
maybe.
So let's go over his list, and then we
Okay.
could talk about whether you've ever tried this to like up your game. Let's stop saying vibe right now.
Okay.
It's now
Good.
officially banned.
Now
and
it's
and
now it's a game.
yeah. Your personal performance. Because that's really what it's about. You're only going to be in the body. If you're lucky, 80, 90 years, and fine tuning that darn thing, especially because it keeps changing. Like every couple of years, you like gain and lose abilities, and so you have to kind of go back to the board and say, okay, now I need to do this. Now I need to do that. A little bit less salt.
Yeah, we're constantly evolving. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way.
So this guy popped a list of 12 things. So let's jump in.
Okay.
First one is conscious breath work. Are you familiar with the term?
Oh, only from an athletic standpoint, but what he means by it, I'm not sure.
Okay, so from an athletic standpoint, that's very, very, very similar. Conscious basically means you're thinking about,
Right.
and breath work. And
Right.
so it's really, as much as anything, being aware of your breathing and stopping and being aware of your breathing. I know for me personally, like for many years, I worked as the one of the lead staff in a program for the 15 most dangerous, misbehaving elementary school kids in an entire school district. And it was lots. There were lots of trauma. It wasn't. It was the best time I ever had in my life.
Okay.
I love those kids. They love me. We had a great time, and they behaved awesomely well. It was so. It really wasn't the horror story I painted it to be. But one of my tricks was the minute there was any sort of anger, tension, drama, whatever, I would consciously take a slow, deep, calming breath. I would just be like, okay. And I would so before I did anything, I would complete that breath cycle and maybe one more. And then I would do something. But the thing was, it would calm the entire room. So everybody else would just like, once I was done, it's like there wasn't really anything we needed to talk about because everybody had kind of mimicked it or mirrored it.
Right.
And so it worked for me.
You sucked the anxiety out of the room.
I do breath work a lot with chronic pain. Anybody who's long in the tooth has chronic pain. I don't know of any exceptions to that.
I'll share something that most people don't know, but when I would pretend to be an athlete, I despised running distances because that was always punishment. So when I became an adult and I was doing distance running to improve my breathing for the musical instrument that I played, I recognized I couldn't control my breathing and I was hyperventilating. But that was easily solved. So you would see me running around a track with a brown paper bag. How embarrassing is that?
That's better than running around the track and dropping over, fainting.
That's true. That's true. So controlled breathing is an important aspect, and it amazes me that you could control the room with it, but it makes perfect sense to me.
Well, it helped to control me anyway. And then now you're back to Star Wars. You're using the Force.
Yeah, exactly.
But one of the things I observed as a parent was belly breathing, and I noticed that my babies, when they were babies, just naturally breathed out of their belly, and then I realized that I kind of lost that I was like way up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I when I consciously breathe, not all the time, but when I think about breath and go, oh, you know what, I'm going to breathe right. I start letting the air fill into my lungs and using my muscles to push it out and letting it fill in, but letting it fill into my belly. And that tends to kind of just ease headaches. It tends to do a lot of good things.
Absolutely.
So conscious breath work, number one. If you're keeping score at home, write it down, conscious breath work. Now, the next one is Justin's favorite, because we brought it up several, well, maybe there's like 8 of these are your favorites, but this one in particular, meditation.
Oh, yeah.
And here's what he says about meditation. And I'm a long-term meditator, so I'm certainly not going to disavow my go-to, but here's what he says. He says, let your chaotic disco mind reign. So when you sit down and just notice your thoughts, and that's all you're doing really, is don't try to rein it in. Let it go. And just let it, think about what your next TED Talk's going to be. Think about whatever you're doing here. Think about your grocery list or what you want for dinner, and just let that happen. And as it happens, eventually it'll get quiet. And that quietness is you. And that's what he says. And that I didn't vibe to that, because vibing, we don't do that. But I resonated. Ooh, resonated. That's probably not good either. Huh?
Oh, well.
But I was like, yeah, that's it. Because when it's quiet, it's like somebody turned off the chatter machine.
Well, he lost me when he said something disparaging about disco, and he did. That was an inference that disco was bad, and then I immediately shut down, and it makes me wonder if this prophet, if we're going to call him a prophet, ever spent any time in a disco, because he's asking me not to sing I Want to Be a Mucho Macho Man.
Well, no, he's saying do it. He's saying go to the chaotic disco of your mind and let it rain.
Okay,
and just enjoy it, and just enjoy the splendor of that, and not worry about it, because that's really what pushes people away from meditation, to be fair, is the expectation that you're going to be like all like you're going to get this Zen hum 432 megahertz, beat going in your head, and all of a sudden you're going to be like, okay, higher plane, here I am.
Well, okay, okay, and you know what? He shut me down because chaotic and disco don't go together. But okay,
Right.
okay.
Well, I've been in some fairly. You have to dance on the right beat in discos. Indeed, it's not that chaotic. But I've been on very crowded dance floors in discos, and that was kind of chaotic. When I
Well,
wasn't in my punk rock phase,
oh,
so my
absolutely.
disco phase was a little prior to my punk rock phase.
Particularly if you were near a behemoth like me. I mean, it could be dangerous.
Slam dancing,
No, no, no. I would have been outlawed. It would have been against the law.
right?
You're right.
I knew people like you that was like you go home with like a bloody lip or something. Like, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
meditation, 20, and basically, if you could do 10 minutes a day of just sitting quietly and just observing your thoughts, that's enough. And without expectations, because expectations are the whole trick to ruining to not enjoying your meditation and never doing it again, right?
And,
It's like
and
so,
your life. I mean, expectation should be a four-letter word to most of
right?
us. Yeah.
It should. I actually attend one of my junior high friends. My best friends are from junior high. Isn't that sad? one of my friends is like a computer expert. He does amazing things with computers. He works at the state of Michigan, but he has a meditation class. And after he does whatever guided meditation or unguided, we do all sorts of different things. He'll come out of it and we'll all talk about like, well, how was it for you? And like, and I'm always like, there's a correct answer here, right? And but I'm always coming out of it going, how was it for you? And I'm always like, well, I was wondering what flavor of orange to use with this recipe. And after I got done with that, and after I like chastised myself for that, then I started thinking that maybe the dog needed to go potty, and maybe we should take it for a long walk today. And where would I go on my walk? And it's funny because it's like that's what we all do in meditation.
Well,
So
yeah.
it's like, yeah, I've been meditating for 25 years, and I start thinking about my grocery list.
Well, I think Peggy Lee had a song about that, but that's just my opinion. Since I'm not a meditator.
And you cannot do Peggy Lee songs, right?
Oh, I can do them, but no, we're not here to talk about Peggy Lee. Okay, what else? What else have we got from
Okay, here's a
this?
good one. Here's this is an interesting one for me. Fasting.
Right.
Have you ever fasted? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you have made weight, right?
No, I did a lot of fasting because it showed up to me in as a teenage athlete because it had a lot to do. What I noticed from the effort, the longer I went, the more sharper my mind would be when I came out of that fast, and how my metabolism would reset. So it was very valuable to what I was trying to do. So much so that the doctors were concerned that I was doing brain damage because I wanted to fast 2, 3 days.
Nice. Which, according to everybody, if your health's okay and you drink a lot of water, you should be good.
You drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
Right, right. And if you get in the habit of doing it, and I only did it quarterly, maybe every 3 months, it was, you look forward to it, and while you're in it, you look forward to putting it behind you.
I'm not an habitual faster, but I love it.
Yeah.
It's every time I do it, you're right. It sharpens you up in ways that are amazing. And it's to me what I like is I'm hungry. I'm really hungry. I'm hungry. And all of a sudden it's gone.
Right, absolutely. It's just like,
And then I'm not hungry. And then I can go for like a week, right? It's like
yeah.
hunger's gone. But
Oh,
I was doing a lot. I was doing a lot of it when I was working. I'm doing less of it now that I'm retired.
because you find yourself it's solving some boredom you're having, so you decide I'm just going to eat.
I think it might have been the need to keep myself sharper at work.
Okay.
Because if you don't get the stress will get you.
Well, right. Maybe we
And
for
so
our
it's this competitive kind of attack mode thing. And I think I've lost some of that.
maybe for our audience's sake, we should do a 48-hour fast before one of these shows. Sharpen up a little bit, make more sense. Cognitive thought.
So we're both endorsing fasting,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
All right. Let's see. That's the next one. Oh, this one's interesting, and it's interesting to me because I just read right before I read this guy. I actually read a story about the heart having a form of memory and and it having kind of its own cognitive framework that it works with in your body. And so this next one is called heart coherence. And what he says, here's how it works. So let me give you an example of it. Basically, what you do is sit quietly and think about something that a moment that love just blossomed within you. You know, it could have been that look that your dog gave you last night, or it could have been, well, no, dogs give you those looks. Dogs give you, that's why we feed them,
Yeah.
because they'll look at you like you're the most awesome example of human I've ever seen, and I'm so happy to be your owner. And God has just blessed us with this moment. And you look at it, and you'll feel it because in the look, and you'll be
Well,
like, I had problems, but I can't remember any of them right now.
right. But I don't want everybody to have their dog be their go-to moment of love.
No, no, it could be a family member that you had that or have that always kind of came at you and gave you that feeling of reassurance, that feeling of being good. Could be a sunset, right? Could be something outdoorsy. It could be a song, music.
Well, I know what mine would have been, or at least what people around me would have said years ago, would have been sausage and pepperoni pizza with extra cheese.
Not ooh,
It spoke to me.
yeah, yeah, yes, it speaks to me. So it could be a lot of different things, but all you have to do is kind of sit and think about it,
Okay.
and let that fill up your heart. And what happens is his point is this. His point is you've endured various little traumas, some of them big, maybe, but certainly lots and lots of little ones, and you basically stored all those. And this is a chance to kind of give you a defrag, if you will. Just feeling your heart, feeling love, feeling that kind of gratitude that filling up with love can fill you with. And if you do that once in a while, you can kind of keep yourself regular, if you will.
Well, regularity is important. It sounds better than eating more bran, but
Not and it's not on the list today. But the next one's going to be your favorite.
well, good. I'm excited.
Ecstatic movement. Have you ever heard of ecstatic movement?
Um, I may have a different definition of it than
It's like manic random dancing.
manic. No,
That
I
makes
haven't.
sense.
It's not my
So
definition.
you're just kind of shaking all over the place. You're doing things without any sense of rhythm, without any sense, and you're doing it as fast and as hard as you can.
Well, wait a minute.
And yeah,
How does static fit into that definition?
ecstatic, ecstatic.
Okay. I had
Ex-
static, so I was
uh,
thinking of
Static would be like
isometric
standing still, right?
exercises.
That's actually how I dance in real life.
Okay. Have I heard of it? No. Other than
I,
Steve Martin did a bit on Happy Feet, and that was kind of what that was, right?
I was dancing up on stage once, and afterwards, one of the people who were there, one of my friends' moms, came up and said, "You've mastered the elephant dance." I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "You go, mm, mm, mm." And that became our go. Every time we saw each other after that, she started dancing like that.
Well, you know what this tells me, Scott? You watched Peanuts too much as a child on TV specials while they were dancing.
Yeah, you know what? I did do my share of that. Now, ecstatic dancing, ecstatic movement, is first of all, it's a decent form of exercise. It's cardio. It's got, but what it's doing is it's kind of defragging your system. Those of us who I spent 30 years on keyboards, and a lot of what I've done in my year and a half since retirement is stay away from keyboards as much as possible, because I realized that my hands had kind of just locked into these repetitive movements and had formed like all the joints had calcified, all the muscles were built a certain way. And what happens is we do that with our body. We sit a certain way, we walk a certain way, And what this does is it undoes all of that calcification of movement.
Okay.
Okay, and you do that on a regular basis, right?
No, I don't. No, and sadly, I hate to report, I probably won't start.
I
But
was going to say, I'm going to send you some ecstatic dancing videos, and you can just kind of take your cues from them.
thanks, Scott.
Well, here's what he called it. He called it like a goat on acid being tasered.
Oh, his mom must have been very proud of him.
Yeah, yeah. All right, ready for a tough one?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And but remember, this is a two-time cancer survivor. This is not your usual, like hearing aura sounds from the sky person.
Okay.
This one's a tough one. Face your shadows. We all have shadows. And what he's saying is start journaling, start thinking about all the little lies that you live, and really do the work on trying to kind of clean yourself out of that.
Oh well, I hope hasn't had a lot of effect on a lot of people. And it's apparent to me he never saw the movie Snow. Wasn't that
I
the
thought it was
name
an interesting movie
of it? Yeah.
for Penelope Cruz, if no other reason.
There you go. But okay.
So you
He's telling me to take ownership of my shadows, and if for whatever reason I've put them behind me because I'm busy moving forward, he wants me to dredge them back up,
yes,
confront them,
yes.
and then I assume he wants me to. Is this a 12-step survivor guy? He wants me to make amends with all these shadows that are hanging out?
I don't know if amends is the right thing. Kind of the way he frames it is, you can either stop and start dealing with this, or you will just keep living your life in cyclical, reoccurring patterns of your shadow's influence.
Well, maybe. But, those are for people that are.
But isn't that the trick with shadow? See, the trick with shadow is we're blinded to it because it's in the dark. And that's really, that's where it gets challenging.
Well, maybe for the aesthetic dancing people, but there again, I'm always confronting the future. I'm always, I use the face in the mirror to make sure that I'm moving forward and not dwelling in the back because we can't change history.
It's funny. I did a kind of a computerized version of this, and I started in my late 20s, early 30s, and I'm still doing it today. And that is, I think of life being kind of my relationship with life as being kind of a series of apps. And I open apps to deal with certain things, and I use certain apps to deal with life in certain ways. And what I realized kind of in my late 20s, early 30s was I had downloaded a bunch of crap.
Right.
And this crap had infected my hard drive. and it become such a part of who I was that I wasn't even aware that I was like playing somebody else's game, that I'd bought into stuff that wasn't mine, but had just been kind of sold to me like this is the way you should be, or this is the way all good boys are, or this is the way that we face these types of problems, whatever. And I didn't realize it because I thought it was being me. I thought it was legit, authentic, truthful, straightforward, whatever. And I didn't. And then all of a sudden, one day I woke up and said, "Wait a minute, these are just bad apps."
Yeah.
And the minute I got that framework, that was the beginning of my shadow work. To be fair, because the bad apps were basically shadow. They were parts of me that weren't productive, that weren't healthy, that weren't true to me, that I had adapted blindly, trustingly, and weren't the most effective ways for me to get through this life.
Okay.
And it's an ongoing process.
Okay. I'm all right. I'm sure there's shadows behind me, and I'm not going to turn around and face them, and I'm going to keep moving forward.
That's another way to deal with it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Here's an easy one.
Okay.
Connect with nature.
Oh, absolutely. In whatever form.
Yeah, and that was exactly what he mentioned as well. And here's the way he said it. and I'm going to bring the forbidden word back into the room.
Oh gosh.
Nature is inherently high vibe. And so you don't have to do when you connect to it, you don't have to do anything. It's naturally going to raise your game.
Well, you know that old cliche, stop and smell the roses. It's beneficial.
Yeah, or hug a tree, or walk barefoot in the scorpions.
Well, yeah, maybe, but nature is a remarkable atmosphere, just like we are, and we need to appreciate it.
I did a show way back when with a guy from Exeter University in Britain, in England.
Okay.
And he had done research. He was a bird expert, and he had done research that had indicated pretty clearly that the difference between being depressed and not depressed was mitigated by having birds singing around your house.
Okay.
That was it. So people who had birds song, who were exposed to bird song, were less depressed and less anxious than people who had no bird song. And he came across it accidentally because he was studying birds.
Well, apparently, I'm guessing they must. No, I think they have grackles in England. He must not have been surrounded by them throwing their poop at him. And if they were, because I know they were squawking worse than crows, he must have been immune to that. He must have found that melodic. He must have thought that was a good thing.
Okay, if your trees in your neighborhood host flocks of grackles, it kind of drowns out the mockingbirds and the other pretty singers. Indeed, I am blessed with minimal. I got one or two.
You know, we've had some blackbirds that would sit in the trees and say meow, and I know they were just doing it to mess with the cats.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
Cats and birds have kind of an adversarial relationship.
Well, no, when my cat likes birds, except mockingbirds, and when he hears a mockingbird, he starts to drool because they must taste good.
Well, the problem with mockingbirds is they lots of times struggle to build their nests in cat-proof areas.
Okay.
They just lack that thing. Mockingbirds actually have a special word for cat, and it's just a sound that they make. But you can tell by the sound that it's like a really bad swear word.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, exactly. It's adversarial.
It's like they just spit it out. Whenever they see a cat, they just spit out this special sound, and it's like, yep. There's a mockingbird sees a cat.
Yep, he's warning all the other mockingbirds. And you know, you haven't lived to 3 o'clock in the morning, and the males are trying to find females, and they're singing their song all night long.
In our neighborhood, it starts sometimes as early as midnight.
Wow.
And it goes. I mean, now it's so hot now that the windows are closed, so you can't really hear it as much. But there's mockingbirds here, mockingbirds everywhere, and so that's why I'm not depressed. Bottom line.
Okay, good. The mockingbirds are breeding, and all is well.
Connect with nature. All right, so here's one we should both of us get like at least an A- on this one.
Okay.
Speak your truth.
Yeah. It's easy. It's lazy. It's a lazy way to be. Doesn't waste energy.
Well, I think what happens is people curb their truth to maintain their relationships. Because if you speak your truth, sometimes things will end.
Well, true, but if you don't speak your truth, you need to
Sit
really,
crock.
yeah, it will stew.
You thought your shadows were bad.
Yeah, it will stew. So no, you have to speak your truth in your courtship, in your mating, in your pursuit of a better half, or you're doomed. You're doomed. She'll learn your truth. He'll learn your truth.
Throw the elephant in the living room out.
Yeah.
Ask the awkward question. This is actually something that we've got a couple people at the dog park who are really good at this, and it's like a constant reminder. It's like a constant reminder that, you know what, they say things that are just amazing, and it doesn't, the bad thing doesn't happen. It's like they speak their truth, and it's acceptable, and people go with it, and it's a good reminder to all of us. All of us like look at each other like, ooh, they're speaking their truth.
Well, yeah, for you and I, Scott, it's, oh, that's just Scott. Oh, that's just Justin. But it's a happy place. I mean, it's actually a happy place to be. May come with a ramification or two, but
No, I mean, and sometimes I think my problem is sometimes my truths are like way overcomplicated.
yes,
No,
yes.
and so I'm trying to kind of make them more palatable or make them more comprehensible or something. And so sometimes I'll kind of shave them down a little bit to try and make them to fit into people's heads, because I realize it's like, when people's eyes roll back, I'm like, okay, I need to stop explaining this.
Well, no, we just need to do our controlled breathing and think this will pass as Scott puts this out in the world.
And part of my problem is I love overcomplicated people. So whenever somebody starts spinning me backwards, whenever somebody just starts, I'm like, what in the hell are you talking about? Then I pay attention. And I'm like, there's something good here. There's a piece of gold in this mountain of other stuff. I'm going to kind of really, really pay attention, see if I can find it.
Well, absolutely. You and I both have that malady, and yeah, that's a good way to approach it.
I read books with reference books in Google at my side, and I'll stop and go, that's an interesting idea. And I'll look it up, see what else everybody else said about it.
When I was a precocious child and I decided to read Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, and I think I was about 8, and every adult that knew me said, you can't read that. Well, the more they said that, the more I was going to read it. So what I had were these charts and arrows to try and remember names, because as a child, all the characters sound the same. So it's like,
you had the little paranoid conspiracy thing on the wall with the yarn and the stickies and
no.
and the little map and
Well, honestly, it was just a big piece of butcher paper.
well, it was old school, right? It was
Yeah.
they hadn't quite caught up to that yet.
And 10 pages in, I'm going, oh my gosh, they were right. But I endeavored to persevere.
Nice. I don't know if I ever had a seminal book like that was so hard that I should never have been reading it. My old man was like a book of the month club guy, and he was working a lot, and so I was home a lot with nothing to do. I was reading everything,
Okay.
but I don't remember anything. I remember a couple books that scared the bejesus out of me, but the Amityville Horror, when it was first released, I read it like at age 10 or 12 or something, and I had red-eyed pigs under my bed for 3 or 4 weeks.
Cool. It sounded like you needed to fire up the Barbie.
Yeah, it sounded like I needed a dad who was ordering history books instead of horror classics.
We didn't have horror classics in the house. We had a large library, but there were a lot of literary classics, and I was not old enough to appreciate them. But now, at this age, I certainly am.
Ha, you know what? I've got the original first publication of the Harvard books of classics. The 50 volumes of every
Okay.
classic thing, and obviously they're all translated to English, but I inherited them from my great grandfather, who
Oh,
died
cool.
when I was 2. But everybody said I was just like him. And when I go to great grandma's house, it was really boring to hear all the ladies sit around and talk about great grandma stuff. And so I would go up in the attic and I would read all of his books.
Well, that's cool, Scott.
So I ended up with this. They said, okay, what are we going to do with the books? Nobody wants them. I said, give them to Scott. And here I am in my 60s, and I've hauled these. And he died when I was 2, and I've hauled all these books. So
Well,
go
Scott,
down.
I wish you great health and a long life, but if you happen to go before me, you know, tell the family I know a guy that would want these books.
I've got about 800 LPs too.
Wow. Those are too much work.
And to get them out and put them in the. They actually still sound better than It's funny how quickly CDs and cassette tapes died.
Well, there's a richness to it, and it's like live music too. Going to the symphony, there's nothing like it. It's got a life
Now
of
we're
itself.
now we're speaking our truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is a good segue, because the next one is And I think the next one we both scored pretty high in too. Treat everything as sacred. So don't save your sacred for ceremony. Use it when you're washing dishes. Use it when you're petting the dog. Use it when you're driving the car. Use it when you're doing the radio show.
Well, I agree with you.
Whenever whatever you're doing, make it as important as it can be. And honor that. Honor the moment, basically.
Yeah, that's, you and I both work on staying in the moment, and it's a nice place to be.
And that's treating it as sacred. That in itself is really kind of the first step of treating it as sacred. Like, this moment isn't worth attending to because I'm washing dishes. That you've already lost it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
instead, it's like, no, I'm gonna do this with full attention. I'm gonna do this, and I like washing dishes. You know why? Because I don't have to think about paying bills.
Well,
There are all these other things ready to grab your attention, or doom scrolling, or whatever. It's like, no, I'm washing dishes. Like, same thing with cat litter. I'm like, no, I'm doing cat litter. Why would I think about anything else?
well, you and I in our careers, we can go hours and feel we haven't accomplished anything, but when we do a simple task, we get to have that sense of accomplishment, and we celebrate those.
You know what? There's the sacred element to that too. It's like starting and stopping, starting and getting something done in like the same chunk of time,
Right,
and knowing it's terminated, knowing it's done.
right, right. And you take a moment to control your breathing and celebrate that moment.
And I'm the cat litter barista. I actually make a little smile on the kitty litter when I'm done, so that the cats know I've been there, and that they know that their servant has properly dealt with their
Oh,
janitorial needs.
I'm laughing at you, Scott, but I believe I may start doing that too.
I mean, why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I saw it on the coffee cup, right? I saw people posting pictures. I thought, you know what? I could do that on cat litter. Why not?
Right, exactly. So, okay.
I want to say that it works because I've heard all these horror stories about cats that have like get mad at you and start getting the bathroom all over the place, and my cats don't do that.
Well, I'm summoned to the box to clean it. The cat will remind me that I have a job to do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got a wife that's on top of the cats, and if I skip that job, I hear about it right away.
Okay. Okay.
So all right, so where are we here? Oh, okay. Number 10. Listen to your soul, not your R&B soul, not your Motown soul. Your soul. And here was his point. And remember, cancer survivor, new age guy. Um, his point was that your soul is the most quiet voice within you. That your head's talking loud, your ego's talking loud, your feelings talk loud, obviously, and you have to kind of get around that to hear your soul.
Okay. I have to wonder, did this self-professed prophet understand things like
No, I think he's
conscious?
profit like making money off it, not profit like biblical.
Okay.
Although he's taking kind of prophetic names, so.
Well, subconscious. Let's listen to your subconscious. Try and get in touch with it. And maybe that's
you know that's a good alternative definition of, and that's one of the tricks of soul, right? Is that because it hasn't been captured and measured and quantified and scientificized, it's like you're not really sure what that is. And you're right, even subconscious is kind of speculative at this point, right? It's like it's just our way of kind of framing what we can't quite understand.
well true. And you do it with meditation. I used to do it in hypnosis. So there's a way. If there's a will, you can get in touch, get in better communication with your subconscious.
I mean, I'll be honest. I'm a Holy Ghoster. I think your spark of life energy is, whether it's subconscious or spirit or soul or whatever. I think that's actually who you are, and the rest of it's just fluff. The rest of it's just the costume that you put on to role play your life.
Right. I agree.
Um,
I agree.
and but catching that and finding it and listening to it can be difficult because there's so much clutter.
Well, and that's why we aspire to speak our truth and live our truth. Out loud, so to speak.
So there's some cohesiveness to this list.
I guess.
I don't think you're going to meditate after the show,
No.
but I probably will.
And I don't drink to excess anymore, so I don't have that to fall back on. But I'll be okay. I think I'll be okay.
Okay, you've got another good one
All
because
right.
you segued right into it. Um, I'm getting older, and my doctor told me for my safety, I need to put a bar in my shower. So I bought a bottle of Jack Daniels and I got like a tumbler, and I've got him sitting in my shower now. And he was totally right. My shower is so much more fun.
Well, there you go. There you go.
So
Application.
the, so the thing on his list, of course, is laugh.
And we do.
Do you laugh more? Are you? It's long in the tooth, grouchy, off of my yard, old man stuff, right? We are
No.
enjoying the bitterness of our fruits of our bitterness years.
Or we find humor in the irony of it all. And it's just easier. It's an easier way to be. Laugh your way through it. Fake it till you make it. Laugh your way through it. Get to the other side.
I did a show way before it was cool because ultimately it got a lot cooler. But I caught the trend early, and it was on laughter yoga. And laughter yoga was you would basically have two lines of people facing each other. So you'd have a partner, and you'd be right next to the partner, right in front of the partner, and you would start. Both of you would start laughing, and you could laugh as fake as you wanted to, and ultimately they would too. And what would happen at the end of this was it would get infectious after a while. And all of a sudden you'd be just belly laughing and crying, and it would get silly as hell. Yeah, you're right. It would be as undignified as you can imagine. But laughter is really good for your body.
Yeah.
So it helps kind of wash out trauma. It helps kind of cleanse stuff. It's good for your muscles. It's good for your breathing. And so I thought maybe you and I we could do that. So go ahead and kick it off. Give me a laugh.
Ha ha.
Ha
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 ha.
ha. Yeah.
See, we're really good at it. We're just naturals.
Well,
We just flow.
we laugh too much as it is, Scott. But it reminds me of the movie Wellville about
Well,
Ville.
old man.
No, Dr. Kellogg, back in the
Okay.
days, and
Okay.
his resort or retreat back in the late 1800s, and that was one of their therapies was laugh therapy.
They've done studies.
Yeah.
Kids laugh a lot. Adults don't laugh as much.
Well, laughter releases endorphins just like chocolate, so
Yeah.
it's a quick fix.
And it's funny because there are so many things, again, cluttering our environment that would lead us away from laughter. There's chores to do, there's work to be done, there's bills to be paid, there's things to worry about. It's getting warm now. Whatever you want to populate your list with, there's stuff there that can keep you in a laughter-free state. And I think that you have to kind of consciously counteract that
Yeah, you need
and
to
look for humor.
change your perspectives. It's kind of like when it gets hot here, the snowbirds leave. Well, there's a pleasure in the snowbirds not being around, cluttering up life.
Oh, the traffic improves
Yeah,
immeasurably.
exactly. So I wish them
So,
well when they leave.
why do mermaids wear seashells?
I find it hard to believe I'm going to laugh at this answer, but go ahead, Scott. Why do mermaids wear seashells?
Because they outgrew their bee shells. Hello.
There you go. And why do unicorns wear bee shells?
Right.
Only Scott would have that
No,
answer.
and it's funny. This is a dog park thing too. Laughter is we laugh probably more there than we do in other places at each other's goofiness, at our attempts at being clever. All those things can generate laughter without judgment there, and that's kind of one of the cool things about being at the dog park is you can say something you thought was clever and people can think it's absolutely stupid and laugh, and they're not laughing at you, they're laughing from just the joy of being a human being and hearing something goofy.
Well, it's almost a utopia in its own right, Scott, and it's therapeutic for all, I would assume. And I would also assume that your dog park friends are all becoming closer friends as the days go by.
I think there's that. I think there's a growth of connection. It's interesting because if you look at it over the course of years, people rotate in and rotate out. Some of that is if they only have one dog and then they don't have a dog, they have 0 dogs. They don't come to the dog park because it's, they're grieving or whatever. Some of it is just scheduling and stuff like that. So occasionally you get a regular who used to be a regular and they'll come back. So, but it's the fluid dynamic of the relationships there is interesting. There are regulars, and I'm a regular, but it's fun to kind of have it spiced up with some of the bonus people that you wouldn't expect. And with us, we get the travelers.
Right.
We get the snowbirds coming in, we get the snowbirds coming back, we get people who are headed out to San Diego from, Arizona, and their dogs got to pee.
Wow, and they look for a dog park. That's amazing.
The Imperial Dog Park, not to name names, but is actually kind of low-key famous on the internet in terms of being a really good rest stop for dogs.
Wow.
And we take it seriously. We pick up our trash, we pick up our poop. We've got pools. We water the plants. We're serious.
So your group, your wonderful shepherds of this park, all poop wranglers in your own right.
We are, and some of us are more energetic about it than others. I'm that kind of person who, if I'm there by myself and I'm just walking around, I'll just grab a bunch of bags and I mean, why not, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's a nicer park without poop.
Like the cat box.
Like the cat, although the caliche soil in that place is so bad that you can't draw a smile on anything.
Caliche.
And you can't grow grass to save your life.
So caliche is the proper way to pronounce that, and in Arizona,
I'm not
caliche.
sure.
No, caliche in Arizona was always caliche, and there's nothing more sinister in the desert than caliche.
It is so hard to grow plants.
Well, plus it will dull your tools, and people can't imagine how hard it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so now is this the complete?
The last one, and it's going to be your favorite because I know you're big into this.
Okay, I'm excited then.
And it's 60s, and so I know you're going to you were one of the Epicureans of the 60s, and so you're going to love this one.
Okay.
Scream therapy.
Okay.
You remember Primal Scream from the 60s?
No, Scott. Other than when I was a bad child.
Come on, you did it in football when you were on the defensive line with the opposing players.
No.
While they were doing their snap count to kind of get them unnerved.
No, I really didn't do that. I didn't do that. I was too busy focused on the task at hand. But I knew people.
You didn't
that
roar
did.
like a lion or a bear, or?
No, I didn't. I didn't snort like a rhinoceros, which would have been the perfect.
Ooh,
place.
that'd have been cool.
That would have. It would have.
That would have been genuinely unnerving.
No, but I do know people that did that, and so tell us the benefits of scream therapy.
So basically, it kind of goes back to heart coherence. His point is this: you spent your whole life swallowing all these little traumas, and for all the times that you really wanted to just give the world the finger, and you couldn't because the situation was incorrect. Cop pulled you over for a rolling stop sign when in fact you'd stopped and now you were rolling to get forward and make sure it was safe. And they didn't see the stop, they saw the roll. And so now they're pulling you over for it. It's like you can't really express your disquiet in that moment. You've got to be, yes sir, no sir, let me explain maybe, but certainly not like, why? And life throws you all sorts of these things all the time. So the screaming is a way to deal with getting all those moments of suppression out of you. And I'm not a big screamer. I'm not a big, this one, I gotta say, this one is not one of my go-to practice ones. So I'm looking at it kind of with some intrigue going, I wonder if that's really cathartic, if it really just kind of clears the decks like he says. And maybe it's like the missing link to having this amazing, incredible life.
Well, I don't know. Our poet, if he's not a prophet, I'll call him a poet, Seems like he had every malady of the mind going, and he had various ways of dealing with those maladies.
Oh yeah, it's really spectral. It is a good, and that's kind of the cool thing about the list is there are things that we normally would gravitate to, and I'm sure everybody who kind of stuck around and heard this list was like, yeah, it some kind of works for me, and then they're kind of like, oh, that one I hadn't really thought about, or no, I thought about it. It seems really silly.
Well, what I'm curious about, Scott, is how did this go over at the dog park?
So at the dog park, it was interesting because it was like almost like bingo, right? It's like we had bingo cards of who we are and how we dealt with life, and you'd go conscious breath work,
Right.
and three people would cover their card would cover a spot on their card, and everybody else would go, "What are you talking about? I'm still breathing. Does that count?"
Oh,
You know, and so that was the way it went, and that was kind of what was interesting about the list was we're all each of us doing three or four of these things because those are the things we kind of gravitated to, and
right.
maybe we had a good teacher, maybe we had a moment where it just fit, and then we realized that's something I need to do.
Or we just
Ecstatic dance did not get a lot of hits.
not a lot of Peanuts fans out there.
Well, and not only that, I think with all due respect to the long in the tooth crowd, we're afraid to do a static dance because we're afraid parts of our body are going to go flying away.
Well,
I
there's always
worked so hard, I lost my right arm.
cause and effect. At least they'll have a funny story going forward.
I actually did do a static dance for a summer or so, and it really was very cool in terms of it was a couple of summers before I did the fascia release. I don't know if you've ever heard about that.
I don't think so.
But if you roll on tennis balls, or if they've got special rollers about this big, you can release the things that hold your muscles. So your muscles are held by this fibrous netting stuff, and that stuff's where a lot of your muscle pain comes from. And anyway, what ecstatic dance did for me was it released a lot of that muscle tension. And so ultimately, if I was just shaking and like you said, moving like a goat on acid that's been tasered. And you can only do it for like 10 minutes. Seriously, it's exhausting. But after I was done, it felt really good. That one didn't get a lot of dog park. Shadows is a tough one for everyone. So we all tend to want to like sidestep that one a little bit. And so that was one that we're all, and it led to kind of a reflective discussion. We're all kind of like, well, now that you say that, maybe this, maybe that. But none of us are doing hard shadow work. So that one may or may not connect with nature. Where we're all like, yeah, that's why we're outside every day. So
Yeah,
you've got a bunch of nature people there.
absolutely. Being a poop wrangler puts you in touch with nature.
So I think what you saw at the dog park was, it's like we all kind of owned the 4 or 5 things that we really liked on the list. We were intrigued by maybe a couple of the things on the list that seemed doable, and maybe like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. That sounds pretty good. And then there were a couple of things on the list where we're like, no, maybe I need to go through what this person went through before I'm ready to try this.
Well, yeah, yeah. Kids, don't try this at home. Somebody had to. Did anybody react balderdash, or is that just me?
No, I think with each of the ones on the list, so I think there was, again, that balance.
Right.
One person would say, yeah, this is my go-to, and the other person would say, this is I don't even see any plausibility to this at all.
Well, Scott, this was an interesting topic. And I will admit I learned something. I didn't realize that unicorns wore B cups, but we can all learn something
Before
every
they were
day.
C cup, before they were C shop.
Yeah. But I guess, and what was this poet's name? And
Yeah,
is he
but
still with us?
is the guy's name? He's long in the tooth like us too. Seriously, it's like the three of us were in the room together. It would be like, okay, three old dudes, you got this. Zen Prem, Prem, and as with any person who's trying to sell books and trying to change the world, and let's give people credit for trying. It's
Right.
not about self-aggrandizement. It's about trying to change the world in ways that you think are important. Zen Prem, Prem, and all the social media places have them. And interestingly, when I saw that list and I reposted it, a couple of people on my friends list responded to it and said, I've read this stuff. I've read this guy's stuff, and some of it's pretty good. So
This should be your homework, Scott. Reach out to Zem, if it is Zem, and invite
yeah,
him on. Invite him on this show.
Zen.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Om Zen. Yeah, invite him on this show. Maybe he can teach us all something.
I will throw out. I actually friended him, and we'll see if he responds to that. But I could throw him a message and see if he
Well,
wants to.
send him this show. This show is about him and his principles.
Alrighty, when it posts, I'll drop it on.
All right, my friend. Hey, Dog Park people, thanks for hanging in here with us. And boy, this was almost like an exercise.
It's a good list of stuff. It's always nice to kind of look and say, oh, there are things that I could be doing. There are things I need to take pride in doing. There are things I need to sharpen up on. And we could do that with diet. We could do it with exercise. We could do it with what we read. We could do it with what we see on TV. And this was kind of a self measure of stuff like that. So I think it
Well,
was worth it.
well, I do. When you brought up Hermetic, I thought of Karnak and his hermetically sealed jar and his answer,
Nice.
the soothsayer of soothsayers.
Well, we've got 8 ball shows, so we get the magic 8 ball. We don't need that guy.
No, but if Karnak was still around, we could invite him on the Magic 8 Ball show.
Yep, yeah, and they could compete. They could go like we could make him answer questions and then do the 8 ball and see if the 8 ball agreed with his answer.
Well, there you go. There you go. We sort him out. All right, Scott, thank you. And everybody, thanks for joining us. Remember, additional information and links are provided in this video's read more. And check out Zen when you have a chance. Today's the day to subscribe to this channel. Please learn more about Scott when time permits.